So in particular, every citizen in every district across the state of Florida needs to look at what elected leaders are doing when they're not standing up against the interests of the power companies and they're fracking and supporting nuclear power and then acting in opposition to solar power. Then they are supporting anti-consumer activities. And that's one of the things that David Jolly is doing. Importantly, though, not speaking out against the power companies. You know, power companies and these big businesses are some of his biggest contributors. But again, big business, power companies, energy companies are some of the biggest contributors to these elections all across the state of Florida. And here in the state of Florida, we have a moment in time where we're going to decide the future for generations of Floridians. We're either going to vote no on Amendment 1, and we're going to allow us to develop solar energy and renewable energy in Florida, or the amendment's going to pass, it's going to be written in stone, and our children, our grandchildren are going to be paying the price for decades and generations to come.
Is nuclear cost recovery something that, is that one of the things that you're referring to as well?
Absolutely. I mean, look at what we're doing in the state of Florida. Every single taxpayer, every single citizen, when they write the check for their power companies each month, are paying for these nuclear power plants that we can't even use anymore. I stood there in the courtrooms and watched this litigation that FP&L before and all of them engaged in over these nuclear power plants. And citizens don't make the connection that when they write that check each month for their power companies, they're supporting the failed policies of these big businesses. And the reason why we're supporting it is because we as consumers have no choice. Every month we have to write the check to the power companies, and then they're using that money that we write against us on these kind of activities that the power companies are engaged in.
Now let me go back to Amendment 1. For someone who is maybe just picking up the ballot today and reading Amendment 1 for the first time, they might think it's pro-solar, but you are saying that it's anti-solar. Walk someone through that who has not heard of it before, reads it and thinks it might be pro-solar. Why do you think it's not?
Look, Amendment 1 is the lowest point of dirty politics in the state of Florida because it's an outright scam. The language in it, it's unfair, it's deceptive, it's a blatant fraud. We've got the Supreme Court of Florida telling us that it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, that it's deceptive. And it very much is, because an uninformed consumer might read it and think that it supports solar, but the language, the entire amendment was created to fool consumers. And that's one of the things that's most disappointing about the way this ballot reads, is the fact that these power companies conspired against us to create a scam, and it's now made it onto a ballot. That's unfair, that's deceptive, and if it were any other company, we'd be suing them and shutting them down, but we're not. Because they're the power companies and the power that they wield, they're able to get things like this on a ballot. Again, it's just outright deceptive. It will not support solar. It will actually defeat solar and entrench that in the Constitution for generations to come.
And let me clarify one point. When you said the state Supreme Court said it was a wolf in sheep's clothing, you're referring to the minority opinion, right?
Correct. So, this language, the amendment, made it all the way up to the Florida Supreme Court, and unfortunately, because of the legal technicalities, the Supreme Court had to sign off on it. But the Supreme Court did not say that it was not deceptive or unfair. So unfortunately, when the Florida Supreme Court looked at the amendment, they didn't really have the power to shoot it down or to say that it was unfair and deceptive like they should have. All they could pass on is we hope that the voters are smart enough to recognize the fraud and the scam that this ballot initiative is.